Hello, finally I've got a chance to make a closer acquaintance with yet another company that made their name as a creator of high-end models, and you can see by this logo, by the video's name, finally I got my hands on FiR Audio in-ear monitors. I've got their middle segment 5x5 model, and also I got their flagship M5. But of course I decided to start with with warm-up dish and save the flagship model for later. Actually, what is your habit? You like to eat the tastiest dish first, or you saving it for later? You can write a comment if you like to share. FiR Audio probably doesn't need my introduction. You know about them. They created few really successful models. They have their own sound signature and design approach, and they deliver a lot of successful in-ear monitors. And 5x5, as name suggests, it is their attempt actually not attempt, it's their offer in the hybrid segment. It's a dynamic driver plus 4 balanced armatures. Price is $1,000 sharp for the universal version, or if I remember right, $1,100 for the custom one. And here they've implemented a lot of their technologies, signature pressure relief system, sound reactor. Actually, I won't go deep into explaining their technologies. There is a great video on YouTube where company's founder Bogdan Belonoshko explains all these technologies. If you're interested, I will add link to the description. Really a nice 6-minute video, so you can spend time watching it and get the idea of how it's built internally. And I will focus on the rest of the stuff. Of course, it's not a new model, it exists on market for quite a long time, but it's still a really good offer, and let's have a closer look. So, earphones came in really simple and minimalistic package, and I must admit that I like this package. You won't get something you don't need. Here is a protective seal, you can be sure that no one did open this model before you. And here are some basic specs. MMCX connector, 1 dynamic driver, 2 mids, 1 highs and 1 ultra highs. 2.5mm balanced connector. And inside everything is really simple. You'll get a few fancy stickers with the FiR Audio mascot rabbit, warranty card, so nice way to show your love to the brand, and leather storage case with this hare's ears, or I don't know, is it hare or rabbit, and inside just earphones themselves, stock cable, and a set of accessory tips, 2 pair of foam tips, 3 pair of single flange silicones, and a pair of double flange silicones that are attached as a stock tips out of the box. Let's free the cable and let's proceed to the review of design. And in this aspect it's basically really classical earphones. So nice ergonomic metal shell fitting nicely into ears, providing nice wearing comfort. Everything is round and smooth. Faceplates have that rabbit with, I don't know, it's kind of sleepy eyes probably, or shy, I'm not sure about the correct interpretation of this smiley, and rabbit ears on the other side, so looks modest and at the same time pretty stylish. Here is this pressure relief system that will provide nice wearing comfort, and the inner side is also done really smart in terms of ergonomics. It has nice long spout with proper angle going just into your ear channel and providing slightly above average passive sound isolation. There is a protective grill inside, and they have two lips, so they hold the tips really well. With proper tips you can get nice sound isolation and good wearing comfort. With double flange you can get even more isolation, and I like that. Some kind of actually I don't know what are these coordinates, but probably actually need to take a look. It's actually they made me wonder. We'll take a look where it leads. Probably everyone knows that, but I don't know. Anyway, here used MMCX connectors, as one can probably expect, and they are a bit unusual with recessed pin part. But stock cable is nice, so I don't think someone will need the replacement. There are ear hooks, but without memory wire, and the rest of the cable is soft in the tube-like isolation, silver one, not getting hard when it's cold outside, really convenient and looks nice. Chin slider and splitter, and jack that matches the style of this splitter. As you can see, in terms of design and other presentation, everything is done really nicely. And of course about the sound, I gave them about 48 hours of burn-in, and they have slight changes in sound during that period of time. But changes were not drastic, so I think if you decide to get this model, don't spend time burning them in, just plug them and start enjoying them, and the sound will settle while you'll be getting your first impressions. More important is to find the proper tips that will fit nicely into your ears. Let's have a player on the table, and for this review, for examples, I will use Astel and Kern SP2000 because these earphones deserve a good source. As for presentation, FiR Audio managed to achieve a really interesting result because, you know, they created a non-audiophiliac model that is really enjoyable and really fun. You know, this is the model that some call everyday carry earphones, and that's true. They are comfortable, but you know, it's not that in that sense that is typical for the comfortable earphones. They are not soft, and they are not treble shy. But at the same time, they are not also trying to focus on something. They are really technical, but they don't go into the micro detalization too much. So really nice, balanced sound signature without trying to make some wow effect by highlighting something. But at the same time, you'll get a good resolution, nice staging, rich treble, all that things that are typical for the high-end earphones are present here. But let's probably talk about the sound step by step. Bass is slightly accented, it's not a big accent, and neither it's small, actually like average proper bass accent with good depth, and with nice impact, with a nice weight. So low frequency is not trying to be super fast or super dry, but at the same time resolution is good, and that small overtones that is typical for the live and acoustic instruments are present here, giving you nice sense of rich bass with all the details of wooden instrument, brass, and so on. At the same time, slight accent makes acoustic instruments more forward, more enjoyable, more full-bodied, so they are slightly hyper-realistic, not 100% natural, but that's because they have that highlighted naturalness. Low frequencies go pretty deep, and they have nice rumble, but at the same time they don't trying to be super impactful, they don't trying to be super punch, but punch is present of course, and it's pretty nice. And with this rich and fancy engaging low frequencies, I couldn't resist, and of course I spent some time listening to Massive Attack with these earphones. I wanted to try just a few tracks, but I listened more than half of album because their rich and layered bass really fit nicely into representation of these earphones, giving you nice saturated low frequency experience. And what is even more important, 5x5 builds that good contrast with that multi-layered low frequencies and rich and interesting upper, mids and treble that builds a nice contrast typical for the Massive Attack tracks. And second example, it's Nguyen Le, celebrating the dark side of the moon. As you can probably guess, it's the jazz cover versions of classical Pink Floyd album. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of this cover album, and you can probably ask why you're listening to it then, but it's pretty pleasantly recorded, and they have nice, interesting bass line in some tracks, and Us and Them is a good example. They have that bass line is present here. It's, you know, not accented, not forward, and sometimes some earphones with dry and fast low frequencies just lose this bass line. But FiR Audio is a good example of earphones that balancing well with that low frequencies here, so this track sounds enjoyable with proper amount of weight. Mid frequencies are also really nicely balanced. They highlighting dynamics a little bit, and they have a slight, you know, really slight and small hint of added weight, giving a bit of additional thickness to the notes, giving a bit of additional body for the instruments, but as I said, it's just a slight accent. At the same time, resolution is good, really good, but at the same time this model is not trying to be focused on the micro contrast, not trying to go into that clinical analytical sounding, and because of that they sound pretty forgiving with not properly recorded tracks. Of course, more or less forgiving because high-end models require good material. But if you have something not properly recorded, this model will be like, will show some mercy for such music. Not too much, but enough to enjoy it. They are really emotional, and especially good they are with male vocals, giving nice amount of additional weight, making voices sound more intimate and more impressive. Imaginary stage is noticeably above average, not the hugest one, but closer to the biggest ones, with good three-dimensional positioning, with nice depth layering and all that stuff that you can probably expect. Instrument sounds realistic, female vocals are not highlighted and not pushed forward, but at the same time rendered nicely with good amount of nuances and details. And as an example for the mid frequencies, first track it's Steven Wilson's Don't Hate Me. Nice guitars, really good arrangement, proper record quality, nice mastering. So typical track of Steven Wilson, and this model renders it nicely, showing all that small nuances and details that Wilson put into his works. And another track, I don't know why I selected it here, but Rolling Stones Painted Black sounds really fun, really engaging, really energetic, and really fitting nicely into representation of this model. With some high-end models, you know, this track sounds like a bit outdated. You can hear it that it's a bit coarse in terms of record, and actually some really high-end and models that are focused on the micro contrast, they're losing the magic of this track, because Rolling Stones not stop sounding like a great band, and they start sounding like few separate instruments playing separately. But this model has a nice coherent musical representation, but at the same time you can enjoy that sense of realism that is typical for the high-end models. And the treble is also tuned in a balanced way. They're not trying to be to highlight treble, but at the same time it's definitely not the treble shy model. So high frequencies here is pretty comfortable, but not like smoother or softer type of comfortable. They don't just not being forward. Extension is good, close to maximum one. Of course, more high-end models like M5, for example, have better extension, but this one is really good for the price, with proper attacks and decays, with nice coherence, because here used two balanced armatures, one for the treble and one is for high treble. I tried to find the place of that driver's overlap, but stitching of the frequency bands is done nicely, and treble layers transition smoothly into one to another. Layering is nice, not superb also, like M5 does it better, but also pretty nice, and that gives you nice sense of realism, airness and so on. Typically for the balanced armatures they have a slightly faster than natural attacks and decays, so treble sounds a bit on the lightweight side of things, but at the same time you're getting nice airness and you getting that crispness typical for the balanced armatures, really good resolution and natural sounding treble with huge amount of small nuances. And first example of the treble, it's Anathema Sunlight, really magical track, especially with this model. At the beginning they have nice guitars that goes high to the treble area, and they have bass line also present, and this model gives that nice contrast and 3D sense. And another example, it's Danny Elfman. I really like Serenada Schizophrenia. Blue Strings is a great orchestral track that is multi-layered with a lot of interesting ideas, but at the same time it's not boring. Of course, it's not correct to call the classical music boring, but let's be honest, not a lot of people are educated enough, are prepared enough to listen to 40 minutes symphony and enjoy that small nuances of variations, contrapuncts and so on. Most of people like classical music, but they like classical music in such form as Danny Elfman delivers and Hans Zimmer and other kinematographic composers. And Serenada Schizophrenia is a good example of, let's call it, not boring classical music, because big orchestra entertains you, changing melody, temp, rhythm and other stuff really often, and you for 10 minutes of this track you don't getting bored. And this model renders it nicely with nice sense of space and three-dimensional presence typical for the big orchestra. And in terms of pairing, they require some good source, but actually they play well even with USB digital to analog converters, best ones of course. But to show the full potential you will need some player. They play nicely with mid segment like FiR M11 Plus, Shanling M6 Pro 2021, Hybe R6 2020, and they scale well nicely with entry top level players too. And a few words about the conversions, actually just a few models that are close in terms of price range. Maybe I forgot some good models, you can ask me in the comments, but FiR Audio, of course, what is came into mind. Andromeda is more lightweight, especially on the mids, slightly faster on the bass with less weight and with bit more aggressive and forward treble. And Solaris also has more accented and more focused on the smallest nuances treble, and on the mid the Solaris also goes more into the micro contrast. It's, you know, classical alternatives like Andromeda and Solaris are more focused on the technical side of things, while this model is more enjoyable and more fun and more highlighting emotions. But at the same time, of course, they are pretty technical too. And what else we've got in that high segment? Wanted to recall some other models, but probably I can, so feel free to ask me. And to summarize everything, my first acquaintance with FiR Audio 5x5 was pretty pleasant, and now I know what to recommend to my friends who want to get some expensive model, but without going into that audiophilic natural representation. This model is great for long listening sessions, for daily commute, for music enjoyment, but at the same time with a good amount of details, staging, layering, and so on. Thank you for listening, thank you for your attention, and of course have a nice day.